Between two great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, lay a land that changed human history. Today, we call it Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers. But for the people who lived here thousands of years ago, it was not an abstract historical region. It was their world, a plain where water could mean life, and its absence could mean hunger, dust, and death. From above, this land looks simple. A wide plain, slow rivers, green strips of fields cutting through a dry yellow-brown landscape. But this was the place where people learned not only to live near water, but to control it. Canals carried water from the rivers into the fields. Embankments held back floods. Irrigation networks transformed dry ground into fertile land. And gradually, these systems gave rise not only to villages, but to cities. One of the earliest sacred centers was Eridu. It stood near the water, among the marshes, canals, and reed beds of southern Mesopotamia. At this stage, a city did not yet look like an imperial capital. It was more like a place of transition between land, water, and sky. Small mud brick buildings, an early temple complex, damp ground, and morning mist above the reeds. This may have been one of the first forms of sacred urban space. Farther across the plain, larger cities began to rise. Uruk became one of the first true urban centers on Earth. Its streets, districts, temples, storehouses, and canals reveal a new form of life. People were no longer scattered in small groups across the landscape. They lived in dense spaces, worked together, built together, traded, recorded, counted, and reshaped the land around them. In the streets of these cities, everything was made from the materials of the plain itself: clay, reeds, wood, sunlight, and water. Houses had flat roofs, narrow entrances, and inner courtyards. In poorer neighborhoods, the streets were tight and dusty. Walls were repaired with fresh clay, and jars, baskets, and water vessels stood beside doorways. Nearby were the artisan quarters. Potters dried their vessels in the sun. Metal workers labored beside small furnaces. Weavers sat in shaded courtyards where threads, fabrics, and reed mats hung in the air. The city was not only a place to live, it was a vast workshop. Above all of this rose the temples and ziggurats. They were not simply religious buildings. They were centers of authority, record-keeping, labor, and symbolic order. From above, a ziggurat in the city looked like an axis around which space was organized. Courtyards, storehouses, residential quarters, canals, and fields. Beyond the city walls, another Mesopotamia began. Fields cut by canals. Caravan routes crossing dry plains. River ports on the Tigris and Euphrates, where boats carried grain, pottery, textiles, timber, and other goods. The cities were connected by water, land, and the labor of thousands of people. Farther south, the marshes opened up. Reed labyrinths, shallow waters, lagoons, boats, and settlements built on raised ground. This was not the edge of civilization. It was one of its living foundations. Here, the rivers met the delta and the ancient coastline of the Persian Gulf. But the beauty of Mesopotamia always had another side. Dust storms could cover the city and its fields. Water could bring harvests, but it could also destroy. The land was fertile only where people maintained a fragile balance between river, canal, and dry steppe. And although many of these places now survive only as ruins, we can imagine how they once looked: alive, dusty, wet near the rivers, golden at sunset, filled with the sounds of crafts, footsteps, boats, and wind over the plain.